Here we go. And I'd like to start out again by welcoming you, and now it's official, you are the jury in this case. And this is the opportunity given to both attorneys to give you some idea as to what is the evidence that will be presented over the course of today and tomorrow. This will be a two-day trial, will be done by the end of tomorrow. But as to your role in this, there's essentially two questions that you're going to have to answer at the end of that. And that is, one, whose fault is it? Who caused this accident? And secondly, if you determine it's the defendant's fault, then you need to compensate Mr. Deviak fairly for the damages and injuries he has sustained and the effect that this accident has had. So that's what it's going to all boil down to at the end of the day. Now, as I said, this is my opportunity to explain to you, give you some kind of summary, some idea of what the evidence is. Now, the one thing that we all agree on is that this case arises from a motor vehicle accident that happened at 8th Street and Washington Street in Hobart, and that this accident happened more than 3 years ago on April 16, 2011. Beyond that, there isn't much, if anything, that the parties agree on. So, all those questions you heard during jury selection about resolving disputes, that's what you're in for. You're going to hear two stories. And you're going to hear from the defendant. She's going to take the stand, and she's going to tell you that she's driving south on Washington, and she's approaching the intersection with 8th Street. And this is a T intersection. Washington is a through street. I'm sorry, 8th Street is a through street. Washington ends at 8th Street. So she's coming south on Washington, comes up to the intersection, stops, says there's a car blocking her view, a parked car, so she edges out a little farther, takes another look, doesn't really see anything initially, but then as she's stopping before she gets onto 8th Street, she sees Mr. Deviak's vehicle already skidding off the road towards her, and within short order, there's a collision between the two vehicles. So that's one side of the story. Now you're also going to hear from Mr. Deviak. What he's going to tell you is that he's westbound on 8th Street. He's approaching the Washington Street intersection. And when he gets to be about 3 or 4 car lengths from the intersection, he sees the white SUV that the defendant is driving, and she's already pulled out onto the roadway in front of him. She's out onto 8th Street, and then, as I say, there's only a few car lengths between the two, so what does Mr. Deviak do? He hits the brakes. And he does start to skid. You'll hear that it's a rainy day, roads are wet. He starts to skid, and he also turns to the right, so as to avoid the vehicle that's directly in front of him. So there is no question that he's going off the road as he's continuing on westbound on 8th Street. But what happens as Mr. Deviak's in his skid, he notices two things. One, that there's a vehicle coming towards him, eastbound. So that's not an option, moving over into the lane to his left, which is the oncoming traffic lane. So as I say, he makes the decision to go to his right. And as he's steering to the right, what he notices about the SUV is that now it's backing up. It had been out onto 8th Street, now it's backing up, back onto Washington, and at that point we've got an unavoidable accident. It was his intention to go behind the vehicle, avoid any collision, but once he starts backing up, we now have an unavoidable situation. Now you're also going to hear from a witness, Carl Kazicki, who was with Mr. Deviak, and he'll tell you he was his friend. They were going to the store this day. And what Mr. Kazicki will tell you is essentially the exact same thing that Mr. Deviak is going to tell you. They're driving west, they're coming up to the Washington Street intersection. A vehicle comes into their lane, pulls out from the side street into their lane of traffic. Mark hits the brakes, steers to the right, they start skidding, and at that point, the white SUV again backs up. And again, now we've got a police. So those are the facts, that's the evidence you're going to hear regarding how the accident happened. Obviously, they're very different. And then we get to the second question for you, and that is, how do we compensate Mr. Devian for his injuries, the damages, the effects that this accident has had? And again, you'll hear Mr. Devian testify regarding the effects of this accident. He'll tell you that although he's initially in shock as a result of what has just happened, which is rather incredulous, but after the accident happened, within a day, 2, 3 after that, he starts feeling it. He starts feeling pain in his neck, pain in his back, left elbow pain. Pain in his back is in the area of his left hip as well. And then within a few days of the accident, upon realizing what's going on, he goes to see a Dr. Redfield at a Core Chiropractic. Mr. Divitt will tell you that he had been there before. He had some problems, neck problems for many years prior to this. But he'll tell you, and you'll see evidence of this, you'll see the medical records, you'll see he hadn't been there since 2007. More than 4 years since between the time of his last visit to the doctor and his visit with Dr. Redfield following this accident a few days thereafter. And he treats with Dr. Redfield for about 2 months. And he'll tell you that the chiropractic care helped. He's feeling better. He's feeling better. And after 2 months or so, he's to the point where things are really going quite well for him. And Dr. Redfield even makes the decision that he's going to release him. And Mark has no disagreement with that. The treatment was working, especially when you get done with the treatment. You're feeling pretty good. But unfortunately, that's not the end. Because within a few days or a week after he stopped seeing Dr. Redfield at a court, the symptoms are back. The neck back, the elbow, the same thing as he was experiencing that short time after the accident itself. So at that point in time, he goes to see his family doctor, Dr. Chopper. And you're going to hear from Dr. Chopper. His deposition will be read during the course of the evidence presentation in this case. And Dr. Chopper will tell you about the symptoms that Mark was experiencing. He's going to tell you about the treatment he rendered to him. And Mark is also going to say that he had seen Dr. Chopper before that time as well regarding the neck and back. But once again, it had been several years. He hadn't seen Dr. Chopper with any complaints regarding neck or back, again, since 2007. Again, it's almost 4 years between a doctor visits for any complaints and this accident and the treatment that followed thereafter. And you're going to hear Dr. Chopper tell about the medication he prescribed, that there was a referral to another doctor to have Mark's condition further evaluated. And you're going to hear Dr. Chopper testify. You'll hear it. Listen closely. He's going to tell you that all the treatment that Dr. Chopper rendered to Mark following this accident was necessary as a result of the motor vehicle accident. So, beyond that, you'll also be presented with evidence that the parties have agreed that the medical bills that Mark incurred as a result of this accident are $9,349.26. That's going to be one element of the damage claim in this case, and that's going to be further explained to you as we go along. And you should understand that at the end of the case, the attorneys will again have a chance to talk to you about what has happened at that point as opposed to what's going to happen. But at that point, we'll further discuss all the elements of the damage claim and what exactly Mark is entitled to be compensated for as a result of this accident. And at the end of all this, I'm going to ask you to render a verdict in favor of Mark and to compensate him fairly for the injuries he sustained as a result of an accident caused by the defendant. So at this point, I would just close by saying that I appreciate your service. Thank you for coming here today, and I guess I'll say willingly participating in the process. And I will also thank you at this point ahead of time for the attention that you give to all of the evidence, all of the testimony that you're about to hear, because that's of critical importance that you hear everything, see everything, and are able to make a full and final evaluation and assessment of this case. Thank you.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen, the now jury. Again, my name is Yolanda Cardona, and on behalf of Sharon Otterson, I want to take some time out to tell you thank you for your time and for your service and for patiently waiting to be selected as jurors. Now, members of the jury, this case is about taking chances. And at the conclusion of all the evidence, you will know why I tell you that this case is about taking chances. You are here today because on April 16, 2011, as Sharon was driving home, she was struck by the plaintiff's vehicle. You may ask yourselves, who is Sharon? Sharon is a loving mother. She's a daughter. She's a dedicated special education teacher. And today she is the person that the plaintiff wants to blame as causing this accident. Today you will hear from Sharon. Sharon's going to tell you the following things. Sharon's going to tell you she's very familiar with the intersection where this accident occurred. She will tell you that as she approached the intersection, there's a stop sign there, no doubt about it. She will tell you that she stopped at the stop sign and looked to her right. And upon looking to her right, she saw that there was no cars coming. What did Sharon do next? She's going to tell you that she then proceeded to look to her left. Then she's going to tell you that when she looked to her left, she saw that a parked SUV that was parked on the side of the road obstructed her view. And she couldn't see if cars were coming from that side. So what did Sharon do next? Sharon's going to tell you that after realizing that this SUV was obstructing her view, she moved forward. Absolutely, no doubt about that. She's going to tell you that. She moved forward enough to be able to determine if she can safely enter the intersection. She wasn't just going to assume that there was no cars coming. Absolutely not. She's going to tell you that she did what a reasonable person would do. She moved forward to ascertain whether it was okay for her to enter the intersection. She will then tell you that when she moved forward, she saw Mr. Deviat's vehicle coming. And she's going to tell you that she immediately stepped on her brakes and stopped her vehicle. She's going to tell you that the front of her vehicle was still on Washington Street and not in the lane of travel of the plaintiff's vehicle. She will then tell you that when she saw him, she noticed that he slammed on his brakes, skidded a little bit, fishtailed, lost control of his vehicle, overcorrected, and eventually crashed into her as she was still sitting on Washington Street. Sharon will tell you that the front of her vehicle was still on Washington Street when this collision occurred, and she was nowhere near the lane of travel of Mr. Deviat. Today you will also hear from Officer Jimenez, either today or tomorrow, from Officer Jimenez. He will tell you that of course he didn't witness the accident. He wasn't there when it happened. He arrived there after he was called. And when he did arrive there, he's going to tell you what he noticed. Now pay attention to what he will tell you. He will tell you that he saw skid marks on the road, and that those skid marks came from Mr. Deviat's vehicle. That the skid marks reflected that both the left and the right tire left 8th Street and went on to Washington Street, where Sharon was sitting at, where the collision occurred. You will also hear from Mr. Deviat, of course. Pay close attention, as Mr. Deviat will tell you that the roads were wet that day. It had just rained here. He will say that it was raining. There's no question, the roads were wet that day. He will then tell you that he was traveling at approximately 25 to 30 miles per hour on that day. When he slammed on his brakes, fishtailed slightly, skidded, and crashed into Sharon. He will tell you that the truck left those skid marks that the cop will tell you about, the police officer, I apologize. Now you will also hear from Mr. Deviat's friend, Carl Pizicki. He will tell you the same version of the story that Mr. Deviat will tell you. But he will also tell you, pay close attention, that Mr. Deviak was traveling at approximately 30 miles per hour. Mr. Kazicki will also tell you that they're friends, that they go fishing together, that they go to the beach together, they once work on cars together, they do woodwork together, they've been co-workers for over 10 years, and friends. He will even tell you that they spend some of the holidays together, like Christmas. Of course their stories are going to coincide. Now, Mr. Deviak will also tell you that as a result of this accident, he suffered from neck, back, and elbow pain. But pay close attention to the testimony of Dr. Shabra. Dr. Shabra will tell you that before this accident, Mr. Deviak has a long history of neck, elbow, and low back pain. Dr. Shabra will tell you that Mr. Deviak, before this accident, suffered from chronic tennis elbow, and he will define that for you. He suffered from osteoarthritis. Again, he will define that for you because I don't know what these terms are, but Dr. Shabra does, and he will tell you. He suffered from chronic low back pain. He suffered from cervical and lumbar radiculopathy before this accident. He will testify that this accident may have exacerbated some of these conditions that he suffered prior to the accident. But he will also tell you, and pay close attention to this, he will also tell you that there's a possibility that it may be his job that's causing these things and not the accident. Ladies and gentlemen, it is of course unfortunate that this accident happened. We know that. Accidents happen all the time, and it is quite unfortunate. And it is even more unfortunate that Mr. Deviak was hurt as a result of this accident. However, Mr. Deviak's injuries are simply not Sharon's fault, and you will see that. She will tell you that she was not in his lane of travel. And he could have just continued on his road, and we wouldn't be here today. But we are here today. And Sharon is looking to you to make the right decision and find in favor of Sharon and not punish her for something she didn't do. Based on the evidence and the testimony at the conclusion of this trial, we will ask you to find in favor of Sharon Robertson, the defendant in this case. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think now would be an opportune time to break for lunch before we begin the testimony of any witnesses. Lunch is provided to you in the cafeteria. Bailiffs will escort you to the cafeteria. We'll reconvene at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. They'll bring you back. Thank you.
All right.